Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. This is episode 258, another live COVID-19 episode. And I'm here with Alfonso, and I'm probably going to massacre your last name again. Chable?
That's perfect, man.
I just went, and so we'll get that out of the way. My last name's Horan. So I get Horan, and all that stuff. But Alfonso, I'd like to thank you for being on this episode with us. I'm going to give everyone an introduction. You're the creator and founder of this group called Industry in Recovery. There's 3,900 members, and it's and how would you characterize the group? I was going to characterize it as a group that supports the endeavor of people in the industry that want to remain clean and sober.
That's pretty spot on. I mean, it's a group of people in the industry, whether they're bartenders, chefs, managers, servers, that are sober, are sober, or already in recovery. And the first part is really important because we do have a really, really strong membership of people that are curious, that are looking at sobriety in a very curious way. So we're open to them as well. So it's not just the people that are sober or the people that are in recovery. It's about being inclusive to the people that are curious about sobriety as well.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm gonna. You're in your mid to late 30s. I'm guessing you sound like a young man.
I'm actually 42.
You sound very young. See, there's the gift of a clean life, I guess, right there.
Yeah.
So. Give us a little history of yourself in the industry, and if you like, I'm going to ask you what got you to the point of becoming sober.
Okay, so like a lot of people in this industry, I started at a pretty young age. I started off in a restaurant. I was a server for a few years. I was really good at my job, so by the time I was 20, I was getting primed to get behind the bar, and like any restaurant job, the bartender is kind of the rock star of the shift. He's popular. He's a well-liked, well-known, and your managers and typically your upper level employees know that you do a good job. And after a few years of bartending in restaurants, I started venturing out into some of the local bars because I just had a really good following and a really good personality, and I prided myself on that. And I was kind of known as the young guy who could hold his own after work. Some of the servers would sneak me into the local bars, and it was party time. I was mingling with the cute waitresses, and we were hooking up with members from staff members from other restaurants and other bars, and it was just a lot of fun, and it was like that through my early 20s. But every once in a while, I'd have a kind of a sprinkled moment of regret or a blackout, and I just do something dumb, wrecked car, or I got arrested, and by the time my late 20s rolled around, I was blacking out a little bit more. I was having problems, moving up anywhere I worked. I could get a really good reputation somewhere, and then I'd do something really stupid. Sometimes I'd wake up with bruises that I didn't remember getting. I lost another car. I got arrested again, and all the while I'm having fun, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is what bartenders do. This is how bartenders live. I wasn't doing anything that I didn't think was normal. I thought this was the lifestyle. I'm just doing what other people are doing, and by my early 30s, the blackouts got worse. The regret got worse. The embarrassing details of the night before got worse. Cuts and bruises got worse. I woke up with some really, really scary injuries sometimes, and eventually the joy and the fun just turned into just a lot more regret and a lot more humiliation and a lot more anxiety. And by the time I was 35, I got arrested for what would be one of the worst cases of possession and DUI. And at that point, I hit a very real bottom. I was drinking to the point where I didn't want to drink, but I did it anyway. I was using pills to sleep because I couldn't sleep without them. I had to manage my life to include alcohol and drugs. And I was lying, and I was living, I was practically homeless, and I got to a point where I actually didn't have a home. And when that guilty conviction came down, I just had a moment where I just realized just what was so clear to everybody else finally became clear to me. Alcohol and drugs were the cause of all my problems. And from that moment on, I was willing to do whatever it took to change my life. And that was just the beginning. And, ever since that day, I've just kind of committed myself to my recovery. I've moved up in my job. I've managed to secure a relationship that I'm proud of. And along the way, I've hopefully become a better man than I was before.
Wow. So you were given, would you characterize it as a gift of desperation or, where you?
Yeah. I'm glad you used that word, desperation, because I feel that's what it took. I think that every regret-filled morning, every time I went through a tragedy, I wanted to change my circumstances. I wanted God or whatever, or the universe, to just fix whatever was wrong, but I was never comfortable admitting that I needed help, that I needed to do it, that there was anything that needed to be done other than the world around me changed for me to bend to what I needed. And when I lost all hope that would happen, when I finally hit my bottom, the bottom that snapped it out for me, I was ready to say, you know what, I'm in a desperate place. I'm in a desperate position. I need help. I don't know what to do. I'll listen to what anyone says. Point me in the right direction. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to live like this anymore. And it was desperation that got me there.
Wow. You know what? As I heard a lot of times in the meetings was that we've had taken different paths to get here, but we're all on the same journey now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I was telling you prior to this, I was sober for 7 years, and then I stopped practicing sobriety, doing the things that kept me sober, and I went out for 5 years. And in December, I made my way back to a room after I found myself getting into really deep into my old habits. And within a week or two, I found this group, a fellow bartender who was newly sober, and she's also a member of this Industry in Recovery down here in Key Largo, wonderful girl. And she told me about this group, and I found it, and I found people. The group, we're going to talk a little later about AA, but the Industry in Recovery is people in the industry who were dogged by some of the same things we have at work because of what we're working here. But there's so many features that you have, and you offer mentorship, stories of how people deal with it, how they deal with sobriety, how they deal with the questions of what you do after work, what you do with your friends when they ask you out, sex and relationships, almost anything. And then you also lend a helping hand to people. Now, you were sober for a while. What inspired you to begin this group?
Honestly, I think it's how lonely I was. It's how completely just, they tell you in AA, in most forms of recovery, from what I understand, that you are going through what everyone else around you in whatever group you're in is going through. You're going through the same things. And here I am, a bartender, and I'd known big business clubs and high volume bars, and I had never met another sober bartender. The idea of being a sober bartender scared me. It made me question everything. I mean, how was I going to get a job if I couldn't be the pot with, how was I going to hang out with my friends who were already bartenders, who already drank, but for the most part didn't share the same kind of a addiction or dependency on the alcohol and the pills like I did. I mean, how was I going to get dated? How was I going to get laid? All these things that crossed my mind, and I felt like I was going through it alone, even though, I'm in those rooms and early previous times I've been in treatment. I felt disconnected, even though I was supposed to be connected by the fact that I was an addict and an alcoholic. And there was just this cultural separation from what I was going through in my real life, and that tapered off. The more and more I worked my program, the more and more I kept going to meetings. My friends changed, with my parents changed. Me becoming comfortable in my own skin changed. How I was okay with being alone without having to feel lonely. How I could be by myself without feeling isolated. How I could make those things be separate from each other. As time went on, I realized that boredom that I felt when I was by myself was just a feeling. There wasn't all this turmoil around me, and I wasn't in a huge whirlpool of drama that I was causing for myself. And that was okay. It was okay to not have something to do. It was okay to just be able to sit down and have a meal by myself. But it took me years to figure that out. And so once I sort of started developing my identity again, once I got comfortable in my own life, I was still bartending. People started asking me questions about how long I'd been sober. Some people told me about how they had struggled with alcoholism. Some people reached out to me about their drug problems. And as social media kind of progressed, I haven't mentioned this to you, but I have a very large group here in Texas called the Liquid Ninjas, and it's a bartending network for Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. And in the Houston group, which is the one that I created, I started connecting with other bartenders, and the idea just occurred to me: if I could do this for bartenders that are just looking for jobs, why can't I do it for bartenders that are looking for sobriety or recovery? So I created a splinter group, and that splinter group has sort of become my focus more than anything else. And it is, for all intents and purposes, it's part of my recovery now, because I want to create a place where industry people, and bartenders in particular, I won't shy away from that, can feel like they're not alone, because that loneliness, that fear of being alone, in and of itself is a deterrent sometimes to asking for help. I've known people that have reached out to me and now have their own recovery that I may not have been a part of, but that I've at least pointed them in the right direction. And that's enough for me. That's more than enough for me. And that's what I wanted from industry and recovery. That's why I created it, because of the loneliness and the isolation that I felt. I don't want other people to go through it, because they don't need to, because there are more of us out there. You're out there, just by having me on, you're letting other people know that it's possible, and that's the kind of influence and that's the kind of impression I want to make.
You know what? I 100% agree. I'm going to probably, it's a fast forward, because since we're there, we might as well discuss it. one of our tenets of the program is in the 12-step program is step 12, and that is seeking out other alcoholics and offering a helping hand. And I believe your group does that implicitly. And when I, part of the things I realized that, and we're going to talk about AA a little more too after this. I knew AA was going to welcome me back, but I didn't know. This gave me a fresh start to see how to work my sobriety as a bartender in this industry, and being able to, if not, I'm not looking to spread sobriety. I'm looking to support sobriety, and there's a subtle difference I try to explain to people. You know how it is when people find out that Alfonso, when they find out you're sober, sometimes people feel the need to explain themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this fine line, like you mentioned, where I will never try to promote my sobriety onto someone else, or make someone uncomfortable, or how can I put this? Talk about it, unless it's someone that wants to know the information, or someone that is interested in or curious about why I made the decisions I've made, or why I'm still in the industry. I mean, it goes both ways, but I think that a sober bartender is a conversation piece. I think we automatically draw attention to ourselves the minute that's known, and I think that's part of the responsibility that I have in this industry is to address it, but not use it as a I don't lead with it. Mm-hmm. I don't lead with it, and that makes a big difference. Because I've been asked before, how can you do this, be a bartender and serve other alcoholics, and that you're putting that poison out in front of people, and I don't. I'm justifying. I don't think I'm rationalizing. I think I'm very honest, and I think that first of all, I feel that alcohol isn't inherently bad. It's just bad for me. Incidentally, it happens to be bad for some of the people that I hang out with that are alcoholics, mm-hmm. and that are in recovery. But the vast majority of the people in this world, my girlfriend, she can have a glass of wine. She can have a couple of beers. Heck, she can even get wasted if she wants to. Her life doesn't fall apart because of it. Mine does, I'm the one that's going to be fiending for painkillers or drinking till 5 o'clock in the morning, watching TV. Mm-hmm. Alcohol isn't the problem. It's what's wrong with me that's the problem. And so I can serve and be a bartender because there's no evil or good to alcohol. It's a libation. It's a drink. It is what it is, man. That's my job. That's how I make money. That's how I pay the rent. That's and more important, that's what I'm good at,
Yeah, I liken it to a pastry chef, or someone that makes desserts having a nut allergy. It doesn't preclude them from making a walnut cake or pastry or anything like that they're allergic to. You don't eschew that for everyone else just because it's poison to you. So.
And in much the same way, if another person is allergic to alcohol on the other side of that counter, and they know they're allergic to, you're responsible to let them know that, hey, this has walnuts. You're allergic to walnuts. Be careful, dude. But you're not responsible for them buying it, taking it home, and then eating it in secret, going in an anaphylactic shock, and then, whatever.
Yeah.
And we can argue the intricacies of third-party liability and all this stuff. But my example is geared specifically to the fact that I'm responsible for my recovery. I'm responsible to help people that ask for help. I'm not responsible to be a guardian or a watchdog for everyone who comes up to the bar and wants to take a shot. That's not me.
Okay. Oh, I want to ask you in particular as a bartender question. Are there rules in Texas? There's a rule in Florida, and I'll tell my brief story, that if a family member or comes to the bar and says there is a person as habitual alcoholic has a problem, they ask you not to serve them. And if they give you a letter and they tell you who it is, that is your right not to serve somebody. And you're not supposed to serve someone. Did you ever hear that? Do you have that rule in Texas? Have you heard about it?
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know that that's a fact. I think I remember reading somewhere through the code that you're not supposed to serve anyone who is a known alcoholic.
Well, no, this is I think it's a state. I think it's state.
Yeah.
It's a Florida state.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. This is in Texas. In Texas, I think that you're not supposed to serve someone who's not an alcoholic. But Texas has a pretty clearly defined rule that you don't have to serve anyone you don't want to.
Oh, that's
employers might be like, okay, well, you got to serve this person or not, or there's some gray area there, and there's
Well, in that case, I hold if you're responsible for not over serving someone, then you're the ultimate authority for. That's an easy one for me. I actually got my first letter last year from somebody. The son came in and told me his father. He was told he couldn't do it for his health and he could die if he drinks and all that stuff. And he came in, and I knew the guy for years. And we came in. I had to tell him. I said, "Listen, I have a letter here saying we're not to serve you, and listen, they care about you very much. If they didn't care about you, they wouldn't have came in. They wouldn't have come to all the restaurants and bars nearby to tell us." And he flipped me off.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff right there.
Yeah, he flipped me off. And then this is just for instance, this isn't a law question. Have you ever experienced where someone comes up the bar, let's say they're sitting at a table, and they run up and they say, "Hey, please give me a double shot of this," and they pay cash, and they just leave money up there and they run back. And I just got a feeling when they do that, whenever they do that, there was someone that doesn't want them to drink.
Oh yeah, man. There's some definite red flags that I've seen come through ever since I got into recovery that I see now. But they don't just exist in the guests. I mean, they're the people I work with sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Just the always coming to work hungover, talking about how they stayed up late till like 5, 6 in the morning watching TV and drinking. The conversation. Insomnia is a real thing. I get it, but alcoholics and addicts seem to confuse the dependency that we have on having to get wasted and hammered and high to go to sleep with insomnia. That's dependence. It's symptomatic of your dependence. That insomnia is more of a cause and effect than a standalone problem. But anytime a guest comes in and does the whole secret every 5 minutes taking a shot when no one's looking or asking for doubles or telling me not to make it look like it's a drink, don't put those are kind of red flags, because I mean it's like they're stealing my secrets here. It's like they're taking a page out of my old playbook. I had a habit where I would go out with my friends, and we go to like sports bars or whatever. And these are my non-industry friends, the people I grew up with. And every time and they didn't drink as hardcore as I did. So whenever I would get up to go to the restroom, I'd swing by the bar, ask for a shot of Rumpelmans, either on my way to the restroom or on my way back from the restroom, but never in front of my friends, so that they never really know how desperate I was to get more booze in my system than them.
Oh, with that, the anxiety, people drinking to relieve anxiety.
You
That
know,
thing, that I believe
yeah,
it's for me at least. I had this. I think there was a generalized anxiety did not exist as much. It developed more. There's always slight feelings of anxiety if you're a human, but for me, it got worse and worse the more I drank, and then I thought I was treating it with the drink, and
yeah.
it just the
There
more
was,
problem drinker I was, the more the generalized anxiety and general agoraphobia would begin. That was for me.
yeah,
I would,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
So,
no, no. I completely get it, man. I think that there's this confusion, kind of like similar to that insomnia thing that I talked about, where we talk about anxiety. That's a big buzzword for alcoholics and addicts
hmm
is how we need it to deal with our anxiety, and how it helps with our anxiety. And the reality is, for me, what I've realized over the last couple of years, is that part of that anxiety didn't exist before I became a full-blown alcoholic. That anxiety was sort of this other side of the coin to my drinking, and they existed together, not at the same time. So I didn't consider them connected, but they were. So it's like I drank because I had anxiety. I drank because I was angry. I drank because I was happy. I drank because it was a beautiful day. I drank because it was raining. I drank because my friends were angry. I drank because I had a shitty day at work. I drank because I had a good day at work. I drank because it's just another day at work. There was always a reason. It was bad. When it was bad, I would say that I was doing it to fix what was bad. And I made this weird connection that was sort of a necessity to maintain things. That it was like, oh yeah, I drink for my anxiety. I drink to relieve stress. I drink to deal with whatever tragedy or hardship was going on in my life. But the majority of the times, if I look back on it, any of those, all of those situations were caused in some way, shape, or form by my drinking or drug use to begin with. Broken relationships, not having cars, behind on my rent or payments, problems at work, arrests, illness, going to the hospital, injuries, relationship issues with my parents or my loved ones, trust issues. All of that stuff was caused by drinking and using, and then I dealt with it by drinking and using. So it was this horrible catch-22. I finally wised up in my sobriety, and I realized that I wasn't drinking to stop my depression. My depression was what kept me drinking, but I created my own depression. So here we are again. My girlfriend can come home and have 2 glasses of wine because she's had a rough day. I will walk by that bottle of wine and then look at her and just be like, how are you leaving this bottle on the table and not drinking the whole thing, driving to the gas station and buying a case of beer to wash it down with?
hmm
Because that's how I think. She'll have maybe a shot of tequila when we go out on a night. Maybe she'll have 3. I don't know. Sometimes she will.
hmm
She'll have a couple beers, and then if I say, "Hey, I'm getting tired," she'll be like, "Okay, baby, let's go home," and we'll go home. And for as long as I've known her, that's always been how she is. If it were me, I would be like, no, let's hang out. Let's go to this place. Let's go to someplace quieter then. Oh, you're getting tired. Let's go to this bar. And then once we got home, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to stay up and watch a movie. You can go to bed. And then I'd drink till like 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, that's me. That's how I deal with anxiety and stress. She deals with anxiety with stress like a normal human being. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, that leads to the next question about Several times I've seen people post questions or made inquiries. He says, I'm just trying to moderate my drinking. And I found, and this would actually, I don't have any resentments to people that want to moderate their drinking. I just don't think if you have a problem, you either have a problem or you don't have a problem. So if you need to moderate your drinking, it means you're drinking too much. So I like it how it's like shut down. There's no middle ground here. So it's like, listen, you either need to, be sober, or you're all right out there. You're one of the normal.
So I heard a long time ago that no one walks into recovery or gets curious about recovery or sobriety because the shit's going fantastic in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyone that's in our group, in our little community of industry people that are looking to get sober, are sober, or in recovery, no one in there is walking into this group or signing up for this group under the illusion that it's a bunch of people that are so freaking good at drinking and partying and keeping their shit together that they decided to out of the blue get sober. That's not what happened. It doesn't happen. It's a non-existent scenario. No, these are people that for one reason or another have hit some sort of obstacle, some sort of hardship, some sort of question mark moment in their lives, and they're like, what's going on? I need to know if it's possible. I need to know what it looks like. I need to know if I'm one of them. Okay? And if someone comes into the group and has questions about moderation, I personally feel for the focus of our group, which is to promote the image, the resources, and the support for sobriety, recovery, or abstinence from substance abuse, that in order to do that, we have to have a singular focus. Look, if you're going to be in this group, it's because you want to know about sobriety, or you want to get sober, or you are sober, or you want to get into recovery. Okay, that's the goal of the group. I too don't hold any resentment or a negative eye towards people who want to moderate. But that's not what I went through. And it's not what the majority of the people went through that are in the group. And if that's the experience, if that's the human experience that you're looking for, I think that there are moderation groups and cut down groups and wean slowly groups out there in the social media world. I think they're out there. I don't know them. I haven't sought them out. I haven't been a part of them because that's not something I can relate to. I can relate to people who are struggling with identifying where they fit in their own life because of alcoholism and substance abuse. I can relate to that, and I can provide my experience. And other people that are like me can do the same. But when it comes to well, I just need to control my drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, if that's all you need, God bless you, bro. I wish I could control my drinking. I wish that was an option for me, but it fucked up my life. Pardon me. Yeah. Whenever I tried to do that.
No, you're all right. We're not explicit. You can say almost anything you want here, or you can.
Okay. And when I tried to do it, I wasn't any good at it. Now, if you want advice or support from people that have gone through the dredges, the real freaking bottoms of their own lives, and scraped the real nitty gritty, you get that here, and you'll get 3,900 people that'll back you up on it. But if you want help on how to control it, if I knew how to do that, man, I wouldn't be 7 years sober.
Yep.
If that makes any sense, you know? So I don't mean to take a hard line on moderation, but I just don't feel like that's the focus of the group. If I lose focus, if I start making it about something else, if I start just opening it up to every type of quick fix for problem drinking, then I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the people who truly find an identity in their quest to get sober, find recovery, or stay sober.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I think diluting something, it would be like, I don't know. There's always groups for that dilute it. There's there's um, there's religious groups that go hardcore, and some we're hardcore sobriety, and they're the most effective groups.
And one of
The ones that aren't
the things,
halfway in. Some are they call us extremists or anything like that, but they're the most effective. Halfway never really. You have to be all in
and,
for this one. But do
and
you mentioned other recovery programs? Have in your
hello?
experience, have you seen? And I haven't. I haven't seen an effective program other than another alcoholic helping another alcoholic through AA. Let's say. I mean, there's people that go to church, and they, you know what? Sometimes that'll work, and stuff like that. The church thing, but I mean, for the real stone cold alcoholic, I haven't seen another program work, and I know a lot of people.
On one hand, I agree with that. Like, I would say that you are correct if I'm looking at through the eyes of Alfonso as a member of AA and Alfonso as a bartender in AA. And then there's the part of me that's grown, a lot a lot because of this group. And I think that it's helped me realize that for some, maybe AA isn't the only avenue, because I've always said that, AA doesn't hold a monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there are better ways for the individual than just this program. And maybe it involves relapse a few times. Maybe it revolves around programs that teach a behavioral approach, where I think smart recovery is one of those. And there's even a passage in our big book that says, even religious people of good moral character, are they're doing something right, and I firmly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's just so many different ways to find that recovery.
Mm-hmm.
If abstinence from the alcohol or drugs is the end result, and that's what our end game is, and that's what the goal is, then I think that as long as we're committed to that, I think that there's a lot of different avenues to find it. And that's not something that I would have said maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. But I think that because I have known bartenders bartenders and chefs and waiters that, through their own epiphanies, because I think it requires a spiritual change of real significance to get you there. I think it's possible. I think that as long as you're connected, I think that as long as you're open, I think as long as you're honest, I think honesty is a real big one with yourself and the people around you. I think that a lot of the foundations of AA can be lived out in different ways. Do I recommend it? No, because I don't feel like you can lay out a roadmap for it. You can't lay out a roadmap for another person who's found their way and expect it to be identical. AA is the most broad and suggestive program because it knows what works. I don't know what works the other way around. Mm-hmm. Can it happen? Yeah, of course it can happen. I know it can happen. Would I try it myself? No, because I'm not willing to risk my sobriety. And I'm not willing to risk the sobriety of someone who comes in and asks me, hey, what should I do? I'm not going to gamble on them. Well, I'll tell you what worked for me. I'll tell you how I found my sobriety. I'll tell you how I changed my life around. I'll tell you what's worked for a lot of us. I was sitting there for, but I wouldn't send someone on a quest to find a golden city in hopes that they'll find their own path on their own and sort of turn my back and then be like, well, told them it's out there. It's up to them to find it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's what my heart is telling me to do.
Okay. Well, this is the particular question that. Do you think it's particularly difficult for someone in the industry? There's multiple. It's a multi-part question. First of all, because our industry skews younger, the age group, and due to their access working in establishments with liquor and around access to drugs, it's similar to the music industry. I'd have to say. Is it really? Is that your phone?
No. It may have been my phone. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I didn't want to interrupt. But do you think, how would you tell someone, let's say a 23-year-old guy or girl, their social life is built around alcohol, their relationships, everything they do, concerts, their off time. How do you break through to them? That sobriety is the answer when everything else they do is alcohol.
Well, I struggle with sometimes seeing people I care about displaying the flags of addiction and alcoholism that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to remember that I've got to be the best example of both the worst that you can do and the redemption that you can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to be the best example of that. Okay. And you're right, man. There's always a young crop of bartenders that are partying and that are doing blow bathroom and that are sleeping around and living that rock star lifestyle. And man, I lived it till I was till my last drink. I was trying to get in every girl's pants, and I was trying to drink at every after hours party. And if someone had pills or blow, I joined in and I, the fun guy from like the beginning of the shift till 2 a.m. and then from 2 a.m. to like 6 in the morning, I led a double life where the other side of the Jekyll and Hyde kicked in, and you can't tell people about it in a conversation and expect them to be moved to change. Weird situation, you kind of have to let people live out their journey. I'm not here to pass judgment on my guests or my coworkers or the people I care about or my friends or anyone really. If I see them displaying those things, man, I've got to ramp up the good example portion of my commitment to sobriety. I've got to put myself available to them if they want to talk. I've got to tell them, hey, I remember this one time, and then let them know a story of something that happened to me. And all the while, I've just got to let them know, yeah, unfortunately, it didn't end well for me, and leave it at that. I think that I had to have run across bartenders that were sober or bartenders that didn't party as much as me. Mm-hmm. I know that there were bartenders that were concerned about the way I was living my life, and that there were bartenders that were actually fearful for my health and well-being. And nobody ever said anything because they knew I wouldn't listen. That's not an excuse, but there's a reason for that. You're not going to get through to someone who's not ready to stop or who's not ready to quit. And the party is going on until the party's not going on, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And I know that from personal experience, if anyone had approached me, and my parents did a lot of times after every arrest, after every hospital visit, after every time they had to find me in some
metaphorical gutter. They told me, you need to stop, you need to get help, you need to do this, but I couldn't listen. I actually went to AA in my early 20s as a conditions of probation for one of my arrests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a damn thing. I remember going to my first meeting. I know I had to go to 10. I don't remember the other 9. I totally tuned them out. That's how committed I was to ignoring any message of hope, recovery, or change. 9 hours of my life that I can't remember because, and if they were sober, I know they're sober, I know that much, but that I tuned it out. So, I mean, I see that in other people. I see that in young bartenders, people that I care about, people that I work with. All I can do is trust that because I believe in God and I believe in my higher power. I just got to trust that if they're ever in a position to ask for help, that I've got to be the lighthouse. I've got to be there. I've got to be the exception to the rule. This lifestyle doesn't have to break you. You don't have to wake up every morning in regret and anxiety over what you did the night before. There's a way to change, and I think I've done an okay job of it. I don't think I've done the best job, but I think I've done an okay job of it. And there's nothing that connects me more to my recovery than having someone say, "Hey, you were there when I got sober."
Wow. Yep. Listen, this brings us on to this current situation we're in right now. COVID-19, the coronavirus, the industry shut down. A lot of our members, not just our members, industry and recovery, but sober people everywhere. They're stuck home, and there's a lot of speculation that there's going to be. There's a lot of heavy drinking. There's a lot of people that could be going out. There could be a lot of need for sobriety coming back. People have that, so I think you're well placed for that. But I wanted to get right to online meetings. Have you been going to online meetings?
I haven't. I'll be honest, I haven't. And it's something that, if I'm completely honest with everyone that's listening, and if I'm honest to myself, it's something that I need to be looking into. I've been staying active, trying to talk to other alcoholics. I haven't called my sponsor. I need to call him back. So if I can get this message to my sponsor,
you're the creator. You're the creator of a group that is sober industry in recovery. So I think you're in contact with a lot of alcoholics. I don't think it's danger here. I think maybe for other people. Yeah. And I've been going to Zoom. I've been going to Zoom meetings. The great thing about it, there is no time that normally there's morning meetings. You got 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Then you have lunchtime meetings, and then you have evening meetings. But because of online, I can go. You can go. There's in Great Britain 6 hours ahead. Australia is 13 hours for you, 12 hours for me. On the West Coast, it's 2 hours for you behind, and 3 hours for me. And you can find any time, find a meeting.
Man, how amazing is that?
Yeah. But when I first started telling you, I'm going to tell you the opinion. This is where people, the deep disrespect, sometimes. I'm not going to ask you a question because I think everyone in who's sober probably realizes, one drink, they probably heard one drink isn't going to hurt. But initially, 2 weeks ago, when I first started going to meetings, there were Zoom bombings going on. They call them people just showing up and interrupting the meetings with, they were posting pornographic movies, all these certain, and it was. In retrospect, it's kind of funny, but thinking about the newly sober people coming in there, that they're like holding on by their fingernails, it kind of disturbed me. I was going to head out and drink, but what about the newly sober person, and they need a meeting, and they got to shut down a meeting because someone's showing porn, regular straight porn, gay porn, whatever it is. Or in a discussion here, I'm going to apologize to him. I'm going to send him a text. But that was perfect. Hello. Yes, we did get disconnected. I am so sorry, Mark. If you're listening, I'm going to sign off. I think we got everything. I'm going to say we could say our goodbyes. I'm going to call you. Let's try it one more time, and then we can say goodbye. I think we were at the end anyway. That's Dropbox. Forget about Dropbox. Okay. Oh, we may have it. Alfonso, I am so sorry. Hey guys. Alfonso.
Hello?
At what point did you get disconnected? We're live.
We did.
At what point?
Right when I was going to start talking about COVID-19 and sort of what kind of effect it was having on everyone, and Zoom meetings. I was talking about Zoom meetings and how I think that they're an amazing resource, and I think that we're living in a very, very strange moment in history and a very strange moment in recovery. I think that having this resource is probably one of the most beneficial things to an alcoholic and an addict and someone who needs that connection. But I also think that not just the trolls that are out there, bombing like you had mentioned. Mm-hmm. I think there's something really important about being in a room with other people that have gone through what you've gone through, sitting down and listening to the similarities, not the differences of their stories. And I think that there's a real human component that is missing from those meetings that I just don't think can be replaced. I think that for me, I think that the industry and recovery group fills a big part of it. Mm-hmm. But I know myself, and I know my recovery, and I still need to call my sponsor, like I mentioned. It's still something I need to do. I still need to go to meetings because I can't let that be enough. I still got to answer the phone whenever a friend asks me, "Hey, can you talk at 3:00 in the morning?" Mm-hmm. I've got to do all those things, and I don't want to fall into the trap that I'm getting enough from any one of those things singularly. They've all got to work together, and I can't let it just be about Zoom meetings. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. I think a lot of people are getting just enough from those meetings, but I don't think it's sustainable for a long period of time. I think people are going to get to a point where those meetings aren't going to be enough, especially like you mentioned for the newcomers. I think one of the best things about being a newcomer at an AA meeting is the interaction that happens when everybody stands up and starts leaving those rooms. The connections you make with people that you're talking to. Oh, hey, you work in a restaurant? Oh man, I work at a restaurant too. Those little moments are what really shape the entirety of your recovery, especially your early recovery. And it's scary. It's scary right now. Yeah. There's a lot of fear in the people that work in this industry. I don't think at any point in time has this industry in particular been annihilated like it has. And then to be battling or struggling with addiction, to be new in that recovery, and compound all the fears you have about how you're going to make it work, how it's going to connect and work together, how you're going to keep your job, and then to lose your job and then have to worry about rent, to worry about your car payment, worry about when you're going to go back to work, worry about are you going to stay safe? What if you get sick? I mean,
it's enough to make you just say, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I'm not going to lie. I'll be 100% honest. I had a fuck it moment about 4 or 5 days into this. I didn't know if I was going to be able to fit into this to-go model, this takeout model, you know. I didn't know if I was going to qualify for an employment. I didn't know if I was going to make my car payments, and my girlfriend, you know, I told my girlfriend about some of this. I told my parents about some of this. I talked to some other alcoholics about some of this, and yeah, that made me feel better. But in the back of my head, I was thinking to myself, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just the moment, just in that moment where I just sat on the couch that I'm sitting on right now, I said to myself, God, what does it even matter? You know? And yeah, it does matter. And I snapped out of it.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, what would it make it any better if you just want to boil it down to one thing? Would it make it any better? Maybe while you're drinking, but aftermath is going to be. When you were off, when you were disconnected, I went off and said because of technology and like Facebook and online meetings, we do have these resources. That's what we have to deal with. That's all we have. Maybe, yes, you're right. You can't. It's harder to be accountable when you're on an online meeting because you can't. You know, you can just wake up. You could look. You could be hungover. I mean, but why would you waste your time going to a meeting, a Zoom meeting, and you know, trying to fake out people you never met before? You know.
I mean,
I stopped when I was drinking.
That's a different type of person altogether.
Yeah. When I went back out drinking, it's because I stopped going to meetings, and that's what I need to do, and everyone needs to do what is best for them. And I think I think industry and recovery serves that purpose because I've seen some guy come in post. Just the other day, he said, I need someone to talk to. People talking about their having 1 day sober. We really only have, 24 hours. But I think that your group is very good for providing a place for people to go, a resource. And I'm grateful that we have that there. And I'm grateful you came on the show. So I'm. I was on your site and I just thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this one up. And after we're off the air, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to tell people if you are. You know what? I'm not even going to mention that. I'm going to mention my new sponsor. I won't. It'd be kind of ridiculous.
No, one of the great things about. And another reason, and just there's so many layers to why I put industry and recovery together. So, when I first got into the program, I was, like I said, I was bartending, I was tending bar, I was working around people that I'd always worked around. I don't know if they took me seriously in my sobriety. Mm-hmm. They knew that I was going through a court case, whatever. They knew that I was on probation. I don't know if they thought it was going to stick or not. I didn't really dive too much into it, but I went to my meetings and I kept going to my meetings and I kept doing all the stuff for probation. And three or so months went by, and all I was doing was just going to my meetings, and it was enough. Mm-hmm. But eventually, that sort of pink cloud that we talk about, that you're floating on, oh, my life is going to change, everything's going to be fantastic. I'm sober. I'm 10 days sober. The world is my freaking oyster. I'm just, that sort of enthusiasm started to fade, and I would go home from my meetings and I would feel that loneliness that I talked about. My house felt really alien to me. Walking in felt really, really weird. Everything just felt like it was so just out of place. I just felt really out of place in my own life a lot. And one day, after a particularly bitter and self-indulgent share, this gentleman who happens to be a good friend in recovery now,
as we're walking out the doors of the room, he just kind of puts his arm around me and he goes, "You need someone to be accountable to," and he just walks off. I knew what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what he meant because I'd heard it before. It was a reference to me getting a sponsor, but he did that and he kind of patted me on the chest and he just walked off. And I knew what he meant, and it was time. And my first sponsor, I found him. I saw him at a speaker meeting one Wednesday morning, and he was a waiter. And he worked with me for a year, and he got me to work the steps. And yeah, I mean, I was in a better place for it. And for whatever reason, my life took a dip. I wasn't going to meetings. I wasn't calling him back. I was ignoring him. I was on the verge. I was on a real verge of just saying fuck it and going back out. And I found another sponsor, which is a sponsor I've had for the last 5 years. And he's a DJ. He's a really popular DJ. He flies across the country to play around at different venues and stuff like that. And he's in the industry, and he relates a lot to my experiences, and I relate a lot to his. And I'm not saying that you can only, connect with people that go through the exact same experiences as you. What I'm saying is that, if you look for someone to just get you through the steps, you're going to find that you have way more in common with them than you realize. And you're going to find that you have way more in common with the people that are in those rooms that you realize. And that loneliness is going to change to peace. And that feeling of being out of sorts is going to change to normalcy. And that feeling that you have to drink because you have anxiety, or that feeling to drink because you've had a rough shift, or that feeling to drink because you're tired, or that feeling to drink because you're pissed off at your boss, or because you got fired, is going to become a feeling of strength because I can get through it without drinking. You're going to flip all of those scenarios around. You're going to flip your entire train of thinking. And that's what you need. Because if you're doing the same things over and over and you expect different results, it's not going to happen. It's just not. I in the same breath that I'm open and honest and accepting of my friends and their paths, I'm also pretty vocal to the people who come to me 2 or 3 times asking me about sobriety, and I'm confronted with a decision to either keep kind of nudging them, or just take a line in the sand approach. And sometimes I do. I'll be like, look, I've told you what works. If you want to keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same results. And that's had an effect on some people, and some people just have a lot farther down to go. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. Because some of the best sobriety requires some of the hardest hit bottoms. It's just the way we are, Yep. I think you know that.
Yes, I do. Well, I agree with you, and I want to thank you again for coming on here, Alfonso. We're gonna.
No, thank you.
I look forward to dealing with you in the future in a sober way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, absolutely, man. This was a lot of fun, man. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you, and thank you for having me on and giving me the chance to just touch a few more people.
Well,
and,
if you listen to the episode,
you,
you're going to hear me wax for about 2 minutes while I'm not realizing that you are even on the phone at that time, because I go, Alfonso, and because normally we're a little more lighthearted than this, but since you know what, I figure I'd give this one up for my sobriety. So, and I do mention it all the time, but I try not to. The whole show isn't about this, but that we do every so often. We should do a show like that, and I'd like to thank you.
Awesome,
for all the
man.
work
Thank
you
you
do.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you for your sobriety.
Right on.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, this is Jim the Keys bartender. It's a little over an hour, but if you are looking to get sober and you need some help, you can reach out to any of the online groups, AA. It's a really tough time. If and as you heard both Alfonso and I said, we don't believe everyone is in need of Alcoholics Anonymous, but only you do. You will know if you need it. So if you do, just go online, and there's plenty of online meetings, and there's a lot of material out there for you. So for now, take care, and I'm not going to talk about my sponsor right now, since it is a wine company, but if you do want to support us and you're not an alcoholic, go to our website, and on the www.keysbartender.com, and under sponsors is a link to Bellissima Wines. I know it sounds a little crass and funny and stuff like that, but I am a bartender, and I realize that most people don't have a problem. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and take care, and God bless.